UFC Vegas 41, Draftkings has finally added some new fights. Weigh-ins are done, so we have all the information that we need to make informed decisions. You can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. First, we're going to look at the premium options on this card. These are fighters that are priced over $9,000. We actually have 5 of them here. Jason Jones, Grant Dawson, Sung Woo Choi, Nick Negumereanu, and Pepe Staropoli. Jason Jones looks like a fine play. He's probably going to get the victory, but if it's by way of decision, he might not score enough points to pay off that $9,500 price tag. He's fighting David Onama, who's only $6,700 on this card. Really fast hands, is an exciting fighter. He's finished all of the fights that he's been in. He's undefeated. He's going to be stepping in on short notice, but this is a guy who's coming out of Glory MMA and Fitness. These guys fight hard, they fight smart, and they're probably going to have an okay game plan coming into this, obviously not coming in on a full camp. I don't think that means that Mason Jones is going to lose, but I like David Onama from a DraftKings perspective because even if he does lose, if it goes to decision and he scores 40 points, I mean, at that price point, he lets you get some of these other more expensive plays that I think have more finishing upside, and there aren't as many unknowns. From a DraftKings perspective, I like Onama. Not a huge fan of Mason Jones at that high price tag. I think Grant Dawson's really live for a finish here at $9,300. He's fighting Rick Glenn. Rick Glenn's going to be $6,900, so another very cheap play, but he hasn't really fought that often. He's fought once in the last 3 years, and that was a quick knockout win over Joaquim Silva. But Grant Dawson has fought 5 times. He's also fighting out of Glory. We've seen him get finishes, whether that's by way of submission or that ground and pound finish against Santos in his last fight. Grant Dawson looks like a great play here, and he's probably live for a finish because he's going to use that offensive wrestling, which looks like it's Rick Glenn's weakness. He really doesn't look like he has any advantages over Grant Dawson, so I really like Dawson at $9,300. He'll be in a lot of my lineups. Sung Woo Choi is another one of these expensive guys who, if he goes to decision, he's not going to score enough points to be in the optimal lineup. He's fighting Bruce Leroy, who's only $7,000, a veteran in every sense of the word, right? He's very good at controlling the pace of the fight, the range that he's fighting at. And yes, Sung Woo Choi is going to have the size and the power and the youth on his side, but do we think that he's going to get the KO victory? I don't see him knocking Caceres out. And if anything, I see Caceres having an advantage from a grappling perspective. So if he gets Sung Woo Choi's back at any point of this fight, he's going to be able to submit him from there. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think that Sung Woo Choi probably wins this fight. But from a DraftKings perspective, I don't really like it because I do think that if Choi wins, it's probably going to be by way of decision. He's probably not going to be taking Alex Caceres down all that much, so his upside is limited in my opinion. At $9,200, it's hard to get there. Next best option at that price point is $9,100 Nick Negumereanu. He's fighting Ike Villanueva. I'll say it again. He's fighting Ike Villanueva. Ike is a human punching bag. We see him get KO'd in round 1, round 2 often. He just doesn't have the durability. He doesn't have the cardio to fight for more than just a few minutes. And I think Nick Negumereanu is very, very live for a finish. I'm going to have him in a lot of my lineups this week. I think you should do the same. I think you should have this much Ike Villanueva. This much. Right there. And the last of the premium plays is Pepe Staropoli. He's fighting Jamie Pickett. Staropoli and Pickett have both disappointed so far. Staropoli did pick up 2 wins when he came in and now has lost his last 3. I saw Jamie Pickett get knocked out against Jordan Wright recently. So they both haven't looked great. One thing that stands out to me the most in this fight, however, is 8.5-inch reach advantage on the side of Jamie Pickett. I think that's going to play a huge factor if this fight stays at range. Staropoli's not looking for takedowns. I know we fancy Pickett as a grappler, but if he wants to keep this fight on the feet, he'll be able to stay behind a real long 1-2, and that might put him in a position where he can win, or at least mitigate some of the offense that's coming back at him, and put Staropoli in a position where, if he does win, it's a decision, doesn't score him a whole lot of points. We've seen him not score many points in his decision victories against Almeida as well as Alves, right? 50 points, 60 points, I think it was. So I haven't been impressed with him so far. I don't think he's all that likely to win, but if he does, he's not scoring the points that you need. So of the premium options, I really like Grant Dawson, really like Nick Negumereanu this week. Now we're looking at the high 8,000s, starting with Tabitha Ricci at 8,900. He's fighting UFC newcomer Maria Oliveira, and I really like Ricci in this spot. At first, I was a little unsure. I thought we had a Godinez-Carolina situation on our hands, where the taller, longer fighter was able to keep it at range and win on points. But after looking at this a little bit deeper, Oliveira, she has two of her 4 losses have come by way of armbar. I think Tabitha Ricci's live to go look for an armbar of her own. Our submission win over Maria Oliveira here, and I like Tabitha Ricci at 8,900. Next is the best play on the slate, 8,800, Jai Herbert. Fighting Kama Worthy, who's coming in at 7,400. Worthy's going to have a decent amount of ownership because, hey, people might think that Herbert's chinny. Got knocked out by Trinaldo. He did virtually nothing against Renato Moicano. On the other side of that, you see Kama Worthy, who got knocked out in round 1 against Otman Azaitar, knocked out in round 1 against Jamie Malarkey, and I think we're going to see more of the same. Before coming to the UFC, Jai Herbert was knocking people out in Cage Warriors left and right when he was their champion. Kama Worthy is walking into something. I'm telling you this right now. When he does, he's going to go down. I think Jai Herbert gets the finish. I think it's going to be inside of rounds 1 or 2. I don't see this getting extended too far. We like Jai Herbert this week. 8,700, you've got Jeff Molina. He's fighting Daniel Da Silva, and there's a lot of question marks, right? Jeff Molina, coming out of Glory MMA and Fitness. We liked him in his last fight, and I think that we're going to go with Jeff Molina again this time. A lot of question marks with Da Silva, level of competition that he's fought so far, making his debut in the UFC. Those jitters tend to get to fighters, if that makes sense. I like Jeff Molina. He's got high output, goes 100 miles per hour. I think this is going to be a really fun fight. I do think there's value on the side of Da Silva, so if you need to get one of these dog plays in your lineup, I don't think Jeff Molina is a lock by any means, and I think that there's higher finishing upside around his price point, like Tabitha Ricci, like Jai Herbert. We're going to talk about Marvin Vettori shortly, so I don't think you need to get to Jeff Molina. I don't think you need to get to Daniel Da Silva. It's probably going to go to decision. Next, we're looking at the main event, Marvin Vettori versus Paulo Costa, and this fight is getting weirder and weirder by the day. First it was a middleweight fight, then it was a catchweight fight at 195, now it's at 205. These antics don't give me any confidence in Paulo Costa. When this fight was first announced, I thought maybe Costa could get back to form after the Adesanya fight, pick up possibly a KO win over Marvin Vettori. And I know he's got a granite chin, he's very well conditioned, it's hard to put Marvin Vettori down, but I mean, Paulo Costa, if anybody's going to do it, it might be Paulo Costa, but with the antics, compound that with the whole wine thing before the Stylebender fight, I just don't know where Costa's at mentally. And on the other side of that, you have Marvin Vettori, who, even in his losses in the UFC, has never given a bad account of himself. It looks like he's always performed at his best, and I think that Marvin Vettori is going to show us his absolute best, and he's going to be highly motivated to teach Boashina a lesson here. Fish for takedowns, I think that he's going to be able to get him, and I see him stopping Costa inside of 4 rounds here. It might get to round 5, but I don't see it going the distance. I think that he's going to stop him with ground and pound or rear naked choke. I think that Costa's going to quit at some point. At 8,500, now we're kind of getting into mid-tier pricing. Lavashvili fighting John Martinez. Lavashvili's making his UFC debut. He was supposed to fight Jack Shore and was a huge underdog in that spot. It comes in here as looking like the slight favorite against John Martinez, and it's hard to say why. He's fought really low level of competition largely in his career outside of the UFC, and John Martinez is going to be far and away the best fighter that he's faced. Martinez is a much better value in my opinion at his price point, and there was a time where the MMA community was really, really high on Martinez, and I think we'll get closer to that. I could see it going to decision. I could see it even being a split decision. We might even have a robbery or 2 on our hands with all of these fights that are going to be on this card. I don't see myself getting to either of these spots from a DraftKings perspective because I don't see the high finishing upside, but if I did have to pick somebody who's a greater value here, I'm going to look at John Martinez. I just think that it makes more sense, and you do see some money coming in on him that could just be because of name recognition, or people could be doing their research and finding out that his opponent it hasn't really fought anybody like him before. That level of competition, and he's making his UFC debut. Those jitters are a real thing, so I like John Martinez in this spot. I like him a lot. Jessica Rose Clark versus Jocelyn Edwards. If you're playing a really large field tournament, you might want to look at this fight because it's going to be a good way to get different. This probably ends up being the lowest owned fight on the slate. Clark is probably going to come in at higher ownership than Jocelyn Edwards, but I don't really see why. I mean, maybe it's just name recognition, but I don't think that she's really live for a finish in this situation. I think that Jocelyn Edwards is going to be able to keep her range, keep it on the feet, and pitter-patter her way to a decision. Maybe not a decision victory, but a decision nonetheless. So I'm staying away from this completely. One fight that I am really interested in, though, is this AARP fight with Francisco Trinaldo and Dwight Grant. Combined age of these guys, over 80 years old, though. I don't see Dwight Grant winning here. We think of him a lot as a power puncher. I don't think that he has the power to put away Francisco Trinaldo. He's one of these guys with an iron chin. He's been doing it forever. It's going to be an interesting fight. I think that it might be a relatively low output. I see Massaranduba winning by decision. I think he's a good way to get different on Draftkings. It might be live for a finish if we see Dwight Grant gas out, and I feel like every time we've watched Dwight Grant fight, he's always gassed out. So I like Massaranduba in this spot. I do not like Dwight Grant in this spot. So Francisco Trinaldo will be in some of my lineups. Lavina Souza versus Randa Marcos. Randa Marcos is 10-12, I think. I don't know how she's still in the UFC. She's lost her last 5 fights. She looked okay in her last loss that ended up being by way of DQ. Souza was once a really highly touted prospect, and we'll see if she can get back to form with a pretty easy out in Randa Marcos compared to who she could be fighting in the division at this time. Probably not going to get here from a DraftKings perspective because this is going to go to decision, but Souza is the play for me. If you were to just bet it straight up, or if you wanted to get different and take one of these fighters, Souza would be the play, in my opinion. Now we're going to look at the Iron Turtle versus RoboCop. We've got Jung Young Park. He's fighting Gregory Rodriguez. Park is 8,200. Rodriguez is 8,000. So you might have to make a decision between the two because you'll be able to afford both of them. For Park in this spot is the offensive wrestling, the cardio, the durability. It's all there. He's shown it in his last couple of fights, especially in that Tafon Chukwi fight. Just fought a smart fight against a big, strong guy in Tafon Chukwi. He's fighting now Greg Rodriguez, though, who's going to be 6'3", carries big power in his hands. He likes to implement his offensive wrestling as well, so that might negate each other. And if this is turning into a striking matchup, we might see Rodriguez light him up. I don't think that Park really has the power to put him away. He might have the cardio advantage to drag him into deep water and win a decision or tie up a choke late. But I like Greg Rodriguez as a slightly cheaper fighter. More finishing upside lies with Greg Rodriguez, in my opinion. And now we're just looking at strictly dog plays. Randa Marcos, I think that she could pick up a win here. It would be nice to see Randa Marcos pick up a win after all of the L's that she's taken in the last couple of years. I don't think that it's really likely, but I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility here. Dwight Grant, I don't really care for Dwight Grant in this spot. If he does win, it might be a split decision. I don't think that Dwight Grant is going to be able to do much against Trinaldo. John Martinez, great value in this spot. He's only 7,700. It makes a lot of sense if you want to plug him into your lineups. He's the best fighter that his opponent has ever fought. He's not making his UFC debut. We really liked him at one point, MMA community, and I think it might come back. Jocelyn Edwards is a good way to get different. Again, I'm not going to go there, but a good way to get different if you're playing larger field. The only other dogs that are worth talking about, in my opinion, Daniel Da Silva, Jamie Pickett, Alex Caceres, and to a lesser extent, David Onama. These other guys, though, Rick Glenn, Ike Villanueva, Kama Worthy, Maria Oliveira, these aren't spots that I'm going to be getting to. Paulo Costa, he'll be live for a finish early, but I don't see him getting the win. Of the dog plays, I think you have a couple of spots that make sense, a couple of value spots, Onama, Caceres, Pickett. Outside of that, you have to look a little higher up. You got to look at Da Silva, John Martinez, Gregory Rodriguez. So you're going to be seeing a lot of people with top-heavy lineups where they're going to be playing a lot of expensive fighters and then some cheap fighters. But you can make your money in that middle ground too, with a Tabitha Ricci, Jai Herbert being your more expensive plays, and then that can get you to people in that mid-range still, like Jeff Molina, Marvin Vettori, Greg Rodriguez. You can do a couple of things. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. If you've gotten to this point, please like, please subscribe. It's really going to help me out. It's going to be able to help me bring more of this to you.